Okay.
So,
Okay, we're starting now. Here we go. So you mentioned, David, worst output against Colorado last year, and App State felt the same way. The way for me, I look at Jimbo, and Jimbo says the offense is not that complicated. Am I right on that?
well, I mean, is it look? It didn't work, right? So
No.
complicated or not, you got an offensive line that did not do a good job of blocking. You had a quarterback who was inaccurate in this game without a doubt and didn't look very comfortable. And you barely managed any first downs in this game compared to what App State was able to do, 8 first downs. So I'm not going to say one game makes the offense too complicated. I will say that they weren't ready to play. And this is now 3 years in a row that I say the first part of the season, they haven't been ready to play. 3 years ago when they went 9-1 with an all SEC schedule, they struggled against Vandy, but they ended up winning. They end up losing to Bama in week 2, then they run the table. Last year, they didn't look great against Kent State, but won, I think, 35-14, 35-10, whatever it was. They struggled against Colorado. They lost to Arkansas. They lost to Mississippi State. Then they found lightning in a bottle, and they were able to beat Alabama and string together somewhat of a season, although it fizzled out. This year feels very similar to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that way too. I mean, when I look at A&M, I mean, here's the thing that's going to look at me, David. They're going to test that secondary. That secondary, I mean, look, we all know about Tyler Van Dyke. I mean, he has done well so far. I think what you have to look at, one, is you have to look at how good Tyler Van Dyke is, in my opinion. But here's the thing that really gets me. Our secondary, Miami secondary, will be tested by a very good A&M receiving core, which is Smith and Stewart. But for me, I've always said the guy we have to stop the most is a chain, because some say he reminds people of Dalvin Cook. How do you see this game? How do you see Texas, their running game, going against a Miami defense?
Well, again, this year it's been non-existent, right? In 2 games, very non-existent. Although A-Chain had a nice game and limited touches last week, he did have the kick return for a touchdown. He did have a nice, 29-yard touchdown run, whatever it was. But really, it's been non-existent this season. So I'm looking at last year as a barometer, because that shows you when the offensive line is clicking, which is something they have not been able to do this year. He averaged 7 yards a carry, 910 yards as the backup running back to Isaiah Spiller. This year, he's the lead guy. If he gets the touches, he gives you great production. Yeah, Dalvin Cook is a great comparison. I had this guy as, if the season goes well, a Heisman contender because of his speed. I mean, this guy is breakaway world-class athlete. He is a football player who can run track. He does track for A&M. He does football for A&M, obviously. This guy has got breakaway speed and can run between the tackles. But again, like this offensive line, Dana, I'll have to tell you, the starting center, Bryce Foster, all SEC last year. This guy has not been, he has not played yet, and he's supposed to play against the Hurricanes, but he was out with mono and hasn't had much of a fall camp. How ready is he to assume the position? You had Layden Robinson, who's supposed to potentially be a 1st or 2nd round pick in the NFL draft. He's been in and out of the lineup as well. Reuben Fatherby's been really good, but the other part of the offensive line has struggled. If they can't figure out the offensive line, I don't care if it's Bo Jackson back there. It's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, and I look at some numbers here when I look at this game going in, Dave. Miami, we're 5-6 against top 25 teams since 2018. Under Jimbo Fisher, they're just 4-3 against top 25 teams at home. Of course, they knocked off Bama last year, but 3-0 in its last 3. And in College Station, under Jimbo Fisher, they are 20-3, and they're 3rd in the SEC, allowing 8.5 points per game and 112.5 pass yards a game. This is a pretty good defense. I mean, for me, let me tell you what I think my keys to the game are. One, Miami cannot turn the ball over, because if Miami has a slow start in College Station, that crowd's going to be a factor. Let's make, as you know, David, that's 102,000. Let's make no mistake. That's going to be a challenge for Miami. What do you think are the keys to the game on Saturday night for
A&M scoring 30 points? That's what I think. A&M has to score 30 points, and that right now seems like a stretch, right? Miami's going to be able to move the ball, but I believe in A&M's defense. Last week against App State, a team that did score 60 points against North Carolina, they held them to 17. 17 is enough for A&M, should be able to win a game. And I expect more offense from the Miami Hurricanes. But if you cannot get an offense going, it doesn't matter how good that defense is. eventually mistakes happen. And that's what happened with App State. They were able to capitalize 9 of 20 on third down. So for me, A&M's the key for A&M is to get an offense going. And if they can't get first downs, and, look, the beauty for Texas A&M is last year they didn't have a backup quarterback because their backup quarterback was their starting quarterback after Haynes King went down. It was just Zach Calzada. Unfortunately, that was their case last year. This year, you've got a room with Haynes King, who has struggled. You have Max Johnson, who has done a very good job with LSU. Last year, what was it, 26-6 or whatever his numbers were fantastic at LSU. And then you've got Connor Wegman, a 5-star quarterback who's ready to go whenever. So they've got options here. You've got to get some offense going, and I think it has to start in the first couple of drives of the game. A&M has to take up the tempo and hope that crowd does frustrate Miami a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, we have some people in the room that want to ask. You have time for a little Q&A?
Let's go.
All right.
Are these people? Are my people from South Florida? Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna get James Perez on first. James Perez, please unmute your mic. You have a question for David Nuno from Texas Ags Radio. No, I guess he dropped. James, go ahead. James, unmute your mic, please. Hello, James. Go ahead. You have a question for David? Guess not. We'll get our next person in, Pedro Diaz Jr. Pedro Diaz Jr., please unmute your mic. And if you have a question for David Nuno.
No questions, just listening in.
All right, go ahead.
Hey, Pedro. What's up, bro?
Just listening in, no questions.
Okay. Our next speaker is I'm going to ask Sean Kelly to speak. Sean Kelly, Coach, you're on with David Nuno.
Hey, Danny. Hey, David. Thank you. Just a quick question. What are you guys seeing out of the tight end position for Texas A&M this year? I haven't watched too much of their games so far this year.
Nothing. There's
Nothing.
nothing coming out of but I'll tell you, we're very high on the tight ends they have here. So they have a tight end, a veteran who isn't necessarily a big play guy, but Max Wright, he's been hurt. He hasn't played. He's expected back, but he's a veteran who's been in the system. But you've got a trio of tight ends that are freshmen that are like all world. Jake Johnson, the son of Brad Johnson, Max Johnson's brother, by the way, is one of the best tight ends in the country coming into college. He's on the roster. Donovan Green, another 5-star tight end. You got two guys right there that are absolutely studs, but again, they're freshmen. And to take on a team like Miami, you can't really rely on those guys as much. The one thing that they can do is extend the field. The thing that Max Wright does is he's able to do both. Not as necessarily as a big play guy, but he can also block, and that's so necessary, especially with the run game struggling.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Again, you guys have been blessed the past several years with Watermeyer. So he was a beast. So I just wanted to touch base on that. Thanks so much, Danny.
Hey, man, thank you for coming on. Our next, let me get Tyler Brodzinski on. Tyler, you're on with David Nuno. You have a question.
Hi, Danny. Hi, David. Last week, Texas A&M didn't necessarily give up too many points against App State, but what do you think A&M's defense can do to stop Tyler Van Dyke?
Well, look, I haven't watched enough Miami this year to really have a good feel, and I don't think the opponents could give me that good of enough feel. But what I've read and heard is the offensive line might be a bit shaky there at Miami. And if there's a strength on the A&M defense, there's several strengths, I believe, but that defensive line is salty. They can go too deep, and then we're talking all 5- and 4-star guys. They got to go ahead and prove it. But I think that's how you get to Tyler Van Dyke. You put pressure on quarterbacks, they fold. What happened in the few times Tom Brady has lost is because of a great defensive front coming after the quarterback. And I think Tyler Van Dyke is all world. I understand all the accolades he gets. He deserves it. When he came in last year, it changed the season for Miami, no doubt about it. But I do think a dominant defensive pass rush, it goes a long way.
Yeah,
I totally agree there. Like, I think Texas A&M clearly has the advantage on the line. Miami may be a more complete team, but I think it's all about getting the ball out quick, making sure Miami doesn't have too much time on offense.
I agree. Good thoughts.
Yeah, and another thing we have to do, like to piggyback on Tyler's point, A&M has to, for A&M to win, they got to control the tempo behind the chain. You know, the Miami defense has allowed just 58.5 yards a game on the ground, but a chain's going to be a major test. There's no question about it. They have a lot of good pieces not to make that offense go with the yardage. They have the backs, they have the receivers, with Stewart and Smith, and they have the line. The only question is at quarterback. Could this be where if King struggles, do you see maybe Max Johnson come in if King struggles early in this game?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't even be surprised if Max Johnson starts. I think Jimbo's going to keep that close to the vest. Look, you've had 8 quarters of Haynes King, and it hasn't been pretty offense. And you can date back to his first start last year against Kent State and a little bit against Colorado. It hasn't been beautiful. Max Johnson, I think, is safe. Maybe not the dynamic athlete that Haynes King is, but right now you just need to complete some passes. But either way, yes, if Haynes King starts, he'll be on a short leash. You can't start off the game 3 and out. And if Max Johnson comes in there, I think he gets a longer leash. Again, I think the beauty of what A&M has right now is the fact that they have 3 quarterbacks that I think they believe in. I think they want to wait on the freshman Connor Wigman a little bit longer. But again, if you have to get some offense going, maybe that's where you look.
Yeah, I think you have to do that too. In fact, I saw something here before last week. Jimbo Fisher is now 28-2 against non-conference teams since he joined the SEC. Now, Josh Gaddis, our new offensive coordinator, averaged 35.8 points a game while at Michigan and was one of 20 to average 35 plus points a game. That was at Michigan. The thing I look at from our running back is Jalen Knighton. He has 1,303 all-purpose yards in 17 games. But the thing I look at, David, is for me, my keys to the game for Miami to win is A, start fast, do not start slow on the road. B, get the tight ends involved. C, get the running game going. And D, pressure A&M and do not let a chain beat you. Your thoughts?
Yeah, while I agree with you, I will say if they figure out the quarterback spot, it's not going to be just about A-Chain, because they do have a 5-star wide receiver in Evan Stewart, who's all-world. They do have Anaya Smith, who is all-world, Agent Zero, as they call him over here. There's other skill players on this team that are very scary. Again, like most teams, and you guys know it firsthand with Tyler, when he took over. And by the way, I know De'Aaron King well. I covered him in high school, covered him at the University of Houston as well. I love that kid. When he went down, he's great. Just a great young man. But Tyler gave that team something, right? He gave that team hope. If they figure out the quarterback position, I think A&M, with all the talent in the world, where Miami can make A&M vulnerable is the youth. A&M's playing a lot of young players who all have the ability to be great players. But again, they're 18-year-olds. And I think that's one of the things that showed up in the App State game. App State was playing with 5- and 6-year guys, right? Guys who had been in the system for a lot, grown men who understand what it takes to win, and A&M is still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I look at some guys there. Look at Nia Smith, like you said, Smith, Josh Stewart. They have a lineman in Robinson. He's a big force in there. That's the guy we're going to have to deal with. There's no question about it. If Johnson's the starter, that changes a lot of things for them. And because I think Johnson's the more experienced of the two coming. In fact, didn't Johnson beat A&M last year?
He did. And let me tell you how good Johnson was. So Johnson at LSU, LSU controlled the first half. A&M controlled the second half. They take the lead with about 4 minutes left in the game. A&M on the last drive gets back-to-back sacks from Michael Clemens, who's now playing for the Jets, on Johnson. So on 3rd and long, Johnson delivers a beautiful pass, gets to midfield, and then throws the dagger, the game-winning touchdown. That guy has been hit again, and hit on the final spot, and finds the way to deliver. He throws a lot of touchdowns. I think it was 27 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's just not the dynamic runner that Haynes King is. Haynes King runs a 4.45. Doesn't matter though if you can't if the line isn't blocking. It goes back to the line.
Yeah, that comes down. It's going to be the battle in the trenches. I mean, Miami looked confused last week against Southern Miss in the first half before turning it up in the second half. For Miami to win the offense, we got, like you said, it's going to come down to the trenches. Who wins the battle down there? I think, to me, the winner of that battle is going to win this football game. I'm going to get you out here on this. Give me a prediction Saturday night, and I'll give you mine.
It is so hard to predict, honestly, Danny. So I'm going to say this. I think there's going to be a different vibe with the offense, okay? If that vibe comes correct, and this is a terrible prediction, I think if the offense figures itself out, just a little bit of offense, right? Getting first downs, I think A&M wins because that defense is so good. But if it's more of the same, Miami's going to roll. And what I think is going to be interesting is what a win does for Miami the rest of the way and what a loss does for A&M the rest of the way.
I said it on your show, I think 2 days ago. I think if Miami wins this game, I have no doubt we will go to Clemson 10-0 because I look at that schedule. Middle Tennessee, you start conference play against Carolina, Virginia Tech on the road, you have Duke, you have Virginia. FSU is always a rivalry game, and Georgia Tech was horrible. I mean, I think after this game, Miami will be favored in every game until November 19th against Clemson. That's why I say if Miami wins this game, I think Miami goes to Clemson 10-0 November 19th. My prediction, like you said, how can Miami handle the atmosphere in College Station? We know it's going to be sold. It's going to be 102,000. It's going to be a night game, and it's going to be warm. We don't, and no, I think not having Restrepo is going to be a big deal. But I think our receiver, we have enough in that wide receiver room to step up and get it done. I think it's going to come down, like I said, to the trenches. I think in the end, I think if it comes down to the kicking game, I think Miami can win this ball game. I'm going to go prediction, Miami 28, Texas A&M 23.
Okay. And by the way, I think this is one of those games, who knows, right? And I know that's for a sports expert, if you will.
Yeah.
I just don't know what A&M team is going to show up.
Yeah.
And I would have told you 2 weeks ago, I think A&M is going to, this is what I would have told you 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Tyler Van Dyke has not taken on a defense like Texas A&M.
No
right?
question about it. No question
Right.
about it.
And, you know, as good as I think he is, he hasn't been tested yet. He's about to get really tested.
Yeah, this is the
I
game.
would have said that
be
2 or
something
3 weeks
for.
ago. Yeah. But now, since I don't know anything about the A&M offense, and that's the big question, now it's like, well, you give a volume shooter a bunch of shots, he's going to hit some shots. So we'll see how the game plays out. But I will tell you this, Danny, I hope that we connect there at Kyle Field. I know you're flying in with Mr. Ruiz.
Yeah, John Ruiz. I'll be coming in with John Ruiz on Saturday into Houston, and we'll be on a bus to College Station. We're going to be meeting at the statues. You know that statue where I think that's the yeah, on the east end. That's where we'll be meeting. We're going to be taking pictures with Life Wallet at the point.
I'll be doing a TV hit right before the game, so hopefully we can connect. And regardless, I know that I will be in Miami next year for when A&M travels to Miami.
I look forward to seeing you next year in Miami as well. David, listen, thank you so much for coming on. Enjoy the game Saturday night. Hopefully we do connect, but if not, we will definitely connect again next year while in South Florida.
You got it, brother.
Take care.
Good luck to the Canes the rest of the way.
Good luck to you guys
Saturday
as well. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.